And a good Tuesday evening, everybody. Wednesday evening, I'm sorry, everybody. Chris McDonald with you. We've got our Wednesday night special early with my dear friend Magdalen Rose, and we got her by phone tonight. And we're going to be, would have done this last night, but I've had the flu and just been really, really sick the last few days. And I'm glad to have my dear friend and my goddaughters, as I call her. Mag, we're good to have you tonight. And we're glad that you're with us tonight on the show. And how are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Always a pleasure, kid. Always a pleasure. Let me ask you this. Trump wins. I'm going to put a figure up here. Nikki Haley was out there bragging pretty much. She wanted a two-person race. Well, she got it. And Trump won very handily. I tend to believe that a lot of this 43% she got is telling in the fact that it wasn't even Republicans that voted for her, because I saw one report that I think 70% literally of the votes that she got were from actually registered Democrats and some independents, but there were a lot of registered Democrats, Magdalene, that went over and voted for her. This could have been a lot worse. She could have been in the 30s, I think, had that not happened. And if you would have just had a pure Republican primary where you had to register as a Republican, I think Donald Trump would have won 70-30. And that's my take on it. What's yours, buddy?
Well, I think what's interesting is that Democrats have been rigging their primary for so long, going back to 2016 with Hillary Clinton, and then pretty much coronating Joe Biden. But a lot of Democrats and independents are desperate for their own choice. And so they're looking around, and a lot of them can accept Nikki Haley. She's much more moderate. She's much more of an interventionist in foreign policy. She's less likely to legislate social issues. And they have decided to try to rig the Republican primary for her. So a lot of times we hear about primary rigging and election rigging, and this is a real on-the-ground example in Iowa and New Hampshire of independents and Democrats trying to make their Republican nominee be Nikki Haley, simply because Democrats have such an iron grip on their primary process. Even what they've done with changing the primary schedule this time, they don't allow for dissent. They are going to pick who they're going to pick. The last candidate to get through who wasn't supposed to was Obama, and Obama did not do much for down-ballot races across the board. So I think that they're doing this because they are desperate not to have Joe Biden, and they don't want Trump.
Oh, I'm with you 1,000%. Do you believe these polls, and I feel like they've been planted, that show her beating him by double digits, and really in reality they're baiting the Republicans to believe that Trump can't beat Joe Biden in November, but Nikki Haley can, and I think it's just the opposite, because I think Nikki Haley is so part of the establishment. You got two establishment candidates running, and I don't think people get enthused about that. You got a hardcore conservative president candidate in Trump, and it is a unique movement. And again, it's not worshiping the mega movement, but in reality, you have to give him a tip of the hat. He's been able to galvanize a group of people in the country that follow his principles. And I'm going to get to the reasons why people voted for him in a minute, but I want to go back to this poll issue with Nikki Haley. I've never believed, Magdalene, that these polls were accurate. I think they were done on purpose just to bait the movement up to believe that Nikki could beat Biden and not Trump.
Yeah, I think that there is some truth in that Democrats and independents would vote for Nikki Haley, and that's where you get some of these numbers. I do think she has a groundswell of support amongst them. It's much easier if you are a Republican operative to say to a voter who's a Democrat, who's not just a diehard communist, switch over and vote for Nikki Haley, give her a shot. She's younger, she knows what she's doing. That's a much easier argument to make than it is to say switch over to Trump. So I do think she has an edge. I honestly believe she probably could beat Joe Biden, not because of Republicans, but because of Democrats and independents willing to break for her, and a lot of Republicans who will fall in line and vote for her. The thing with the Trump polls is, overall, it seems that there's an idea that Trump has an edge over Biden. But the problem with that is we're so early in the season, and up until now, so much has been focused on attacking Ron DeSantis and the primary process. We have not gotten to a place yet of Trump being under siege by the mainstream media again. And the issue of abortion is going to be really big, and it's been revealed that Biden has invited one of the women who wanted an abortion, and they said it wasn't medically necessary, and there was a court battle over it, I think in Texas, to the State of the Union. He's going to run a campaign of fear, and I think Nikki Haley, in a lot of Republicans, Democrats, and independents' minds, is much more able to counter that than Donald Trump is.
Do you believe though? And let me ask you a question. And we got two generations on the phone tonight. I don't have to be maybe even your granddaddy, but no, it's definitely old enough to be your father. Two different generations. But the thing is that she made a big deal about Trump's age, and she's going to, of course, you got two 80-year-olds running, but in reality, Magdalen, do we want somebody that's going to run the country as a left of center Republican and run it as a centrist and almost a right Democrat? Because isn't that not what has gotten us in this mess? And we can't seem to clean out the country because we're basically shaking hands with ideas and policies that have been wrong for 50 years, and you border the fence with them and you go in there and rule as one. You're going to wind up basically running the country just like a Democrat would. That's my take on it. Now, that's the old man's version. What's the young lady's version that's wanting to see maybe a new generation of leaders come on?
Well, I think that there is a truth to that. And on the flip side of it, we just have to get Democrats out of office. So there is a real feeling amongst young conservatives and even just not much older conservatives that Nikki Haley has an ability to get elected. And this is one thing I've wondered. We hear so much about the primary process, but if you notice, Republicans are talking very little about the general election. And it's odd because everyone knew Trump was going to be the nominee barring some cataclysmic event. That was not really up for debate. And yet you don't hear Republicans talking about the pathway forward and how they're going to be able to win. And they are not talking about that because we have states that are in real trouble. If you look at Arizona and Wisconsin and Pennsylvania and Michigan, there's been no inroads made with voters there by the Republican Party. It hasn't happened. So there is definitely a feeling within the GOP that Nikki Haley has a very good chance at winning those states that have been up and have been lost under the Trump presidency and with the whole MAGA agenda. There is a belief she can do that. If Nikki Haley was the nominee, I would not think we are doomed in terms of her getting elected. I think she has a pretty good chance, but she's not going to be, so I don't understand why she's still in this unless she wants to be VP.
Yeah. I'm curious about that. That is a great question. Do you think that she's window dressing for him? And the question I would ask you, because I heard her last night and I was very taken by the fact that she is sort of like the Titanic is going down. Look, Chris Christie, you can say what you want to about Chris Christie. He's a dweeb, but he really got it right. She's going to get smoked. And look, politics is a game of numbers. And she lost last night by 11%. She lost 174,000 to 139. That's 40,000 votes. Well, in a state like New Hampshire, that's a rout. That's a rout. She graciously says we're going on to South Carolina, knowing that she's down by 30 points, Magdalen, in some polls down there. Do you think that she is going to hold out till then, and then Trump's going to kiss and make up and say, okay, I'm going to let you, I'm going to forgive all the stuff you said, just like he did. I mean, he was nice to DeSantis in his concession. And do you see Nikki Haley emerging as a VP choice? We talked about this last time you were on during Iowa, and there was a lot of disagreement out there in the chat room about why we would want Nikki Haley as a vice president, why we wouldn't. So I'm just curious, do you think that that's what she's vying for, and do you think that's even on Trump's table?
I think it is what she's vying for. I think she also thinks that there's a chance that he won't be able to run, that he'll be convicted, something will happen, and then she has a good chance of winning the presidency. There's a level of discontent amongst young conservatives. Some of us feel that Ron DeSantis is the better pick. Some feel Nikki Haley. But when you look at what you get when you look at those candidates, I see why Nikki Haley is helpful to Trump. And I don't necessarily see why DeSantis is, because a lot of the people that DeSantis carries, Trump will carry anyway. So if you look at this, and if you were going to do sort of a political autopsy, you would say Nikki Haley is probably going to deliver the most of any candidate up there. Unless you pick somebody from Wisconsin or Arizona, although the Arizona Republican bench is so small, there aren't really any viable choices. Nobody else is going to deliver anything. Her name brand recognition is high. And the other thing is, suburban women, the Republican Party has been hemorrhaging them under the Trump presidency. They don't like him. They've never liked him. and she has a very good inroad with them. So she may be the candidate that is not, of course, as loyal as he would like and not as willing to just lay down her life for him, but she is the candidate that may help him win the White House. And when you see Tim Scott and Vivek behind him and you see all the sort of coalescing around him, a lot of those people believe they're probably going to be vice president. But if Trump really wants to be elected, he's got to fill his gaps. And nobody on that stage behind him so far fills those gaps, but Nikki Haley could.
Yeah. If it's not Nikki and it's not Ron, what's Magdalen Rose's top three?
I think that Tim Scott is probably on that short list. I see he got engaged. He seems to be trying to, make himself more of a package deal for a higher office. You could also see the senator from Iowa on that short list. He likes her very much. The problem is there's not a lot of people who want to take that risk. When he was running in 2016, he faced a similar issue. There were not a lot of people who wanted to be vice president. And there's a famous segment where Hannity talks to Newt Gingrich, and Newt Gingrich said you could have two cowboys on the ticket, or you could have someone more quiet and statesmanship-like, and yourself. And Trump went with a more statesman character. So Trump often has a hard time finding people who want to take the risk. A lot of people who get around Trump through no fault of their own end up in federal prison. So this is a real concern for people. He's also very much in the older sphere. He's somebody who it was only going to serve one term. There's a thought that if you're his vice president, you may have to become president. If he has a health issue, there's a lot of problems here. Nikki Haley wants it. And that's really what separates her from the rest of the pack. She is a political animal in wanting to be in high office. I don't want her to be president. I think she'll probably get us into a war with Russia or China or something. She's definitely the only reason Nikki Haley's not yet a war criminal or a war hawk is because she's not gotten high enough office to make the choices to get us into a war. So I don't want her to be in office. But if Trump wants to win, he may need to take her.
Okay, well, let me ask you this. Weird question. I watched him in Iowa, and I watched him last night when he won, and there was a difference from the Trump of 2024 of the Trump of 2020. Trump in the primary, and really 2016, I'll even go back to 2016. 2016, there was a lot of arrogance, a lot of, I did this, and I even noticed little statements that he made even before last night, because he was talking to reporters. He said, I think we're in for a big night, and then he stopped. He said, I hope we are at least. Whereas the Trump of the past would have just adamantly hit his hand on the podium and said, we are going to win no matter what. And there's been a little humility, Magdalen, that I think really serves him well. And I'm just curious how that humility and that different tone, I know it's playing well with me. I don't know how it's playing well out there in the real world of La La Land and the real world of, the internet and all. But I do feel that people that are serious about the country, they're caring about the country. They don't care about other things. They want to see the country in good shape after this debacle we've had for 4 years. It's playing well with older people from what I've been listening to and watching. How's it playing with young people? Did they notice that, or is that something that goes over their head? Or are they seeing a different tone in him and maybe they're warming to him? Because I have seen some polls that he's beginning to pull the young vote away from Biden because Grandpa Joe was so calm and, cool and everybody. But Trump can be cool and calm too, and he can be Grandpa Trump.
Yeah. Well, I think that the issue with young people is not so much that they're liking Trump on a personality level. It's the fact that Biden failed to address student debt. And everything he did got struck down by the Supreme Court. He was not able to get it done. So that's why they're breaking for Trump. If Trump promises any level of student debt absolving or any level of tackling it, he can win over many more young people. But make no mistake, he's still not going to win a majority. He's not going to get anywhere close. We can pick off another 5% maybe that nobody talks to, maybe even 10%. But that's what that trend line is about. And on the flip side of that, Trump needs to be a little bit more humble. He needs to do that because the people who don't like him in the Republican Party don't like him because they feel he's arrogant and that he doesn't have a lot to show for all of his arrogance. If you look at what we have had in election results in the last couple cycles, from 2016 on, 2018 we lost the House, 2020 was a disaster, 2022, as you know, the midterms, full-on disaster. We have had special elections that have been lost. He has not delivered for the Republican Party in terms of elections. We have pretty much been gutted in Arizona and Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, and we've made up no ground in Michigan. So if you're going to be as arrogant as he is, that's fine. But make sure that you are delivering. You know, Ronald Reagan could have been even more arrogant because he was helping candidates down ballot. He chose not to be. It endeared him to women. Trump has to endear himself to women in the Republican Party. He cannot simply go on and say nasty things and act however he wants, because it's not going to help him win. And what's sad is when he does that, when he is humble, you see immediate results. But he rarely stays on the humble path. So whoever's advising him to do that needs to make him stay on it, because those down ballot races, whether or not they're endorsed by him, are going to be affected by him if he's at the top of the ticket.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think the humility. Look, I think the humility issue is going to play well for him. But I'm with you. I hope it stays. I think what's happened, Magdalen, in a redemptive way, all these things that are hitting him, look, it takes its toll on a person. Trust me, I know. And it changes your demeanor. And I think that it will serve him well. And I think that if he can stay humble and not declare that, the great Trump machine is going to do this no matter what, and really let the American people know that he has to have them behind him, and he has to have them to do, to get out and vote and to stay with him through these things, I think he's going to be fine. Now, the other thing I want to ask you about, this is just a more serious question. Do you think that the voter issue, the fair and free elections, because they tried to bait him up last night about the fraud, and he answered it, I think, beautifully. And he even said, I'm glad you asked me that question. He said, we can't have a country without fair and free elections and without a border, which leads me to my next statement. One of the biggest issues last night, and I found it very intriguing, in the beautiful state of New Hampshire. I've been there many times. It's beautiful up there. I've worked up there. Was there actually the day of 9/11/2001, sadly, and very, very, very stays in my memory forever, that beautiful part of the country. And but the thing the voters seemed to care about was not even Trump. It was immigration. Mm-hmm. And I think if my question, I guess, is this: if it's immigration, if immigration is the issue, then does he win on that alone? Because the Democrats are not trying to make it about immigration, Mag. They're trying to make it about abortion. But the voters last night, almost 42%, that's a lot. I mean, that's almost half of 300,000 people that voted said, we want a secure border because it's affecting New England. New Hampshire's almost 3,000 miles from the southern border, buddy. So they're caring. They're worried about it up there in New Hampshire.
Yeah, they are worried about it. The problem that Trump has is that he does not necessarily know how to run on immigration anymore. If you remember in 2016, he got to the specifics of the impact of immigration. He talked about the healthcare system being bogged down. He talked about the education system being held down by the amount of immigrant children coming in who didn't speak English, and it was slowing down the classroom. There was a nuance to it. He wasn't just saying, build the wall and close the border. He was talking about specific problems. If Trump talks about the real cost of illegal immigration, homelessness, the migrant population, the fact that social services in cities are now so bogged down by this, they can't help Americans, many times minority Americans who are in desperate need. If he does that, he can win on immigration. But if he just says crazy things and yells, build the wall, and does all that, it's not going to help him. The American people are paying attention to immigration. They're not going to be able to stop that. Biden can't correct that. But what they're not necessarily paying attention to is the individual cost to themselves that immigration has. He needs to explain what that is. He's certainly capable of it. Just throw the lines into the speeches. It does not take a lot. But if he focuses on that, if he can stop himself from just talking about the wall and all of that, and can talk about how you need to lessen the burden on the education system and the healthcare system, and you need to clean up cities so that people have businesses and the economy can grow, that's how you win on immigration. You don't win on immigration by simply saying, build the wall and I'm the greatest president ever, because people have heard that and it just hasn't been enough in the past.
Okay, now, moving forward. By the way, I got to ask you this. Did you notice that Joe Biden, this is how crazy this world is, they wrote his name in last night, and he still got 60% of the vote of Democrats. I don't know if you was watching Fox last night. I found it intriguing. They were basically showing the issues among, like, New Hampshire Democrats, New Hampshire Republicans. Do you realize that in New Hampshire, the Democrats are giving him an 89% approval rating? Magdalen, look,
Yeah.
me and you, we two different generations. This country's in the freaking toilet, buddy. This country's in the freaking toilet. How do you get 89% of Democrats to believe that this man's doing a good job? How do you get that?
Because Democrats have a really low belief in Biden. They have a very low desire. The bar is so low that as long as he hasn't randomly said the wrong name of whoever his running mate is or stuff like that, I think he's doing okay. The bar's always been really low for Biden, and this is something Republicans, the RNC, have never grasped. Biden doesn't have to excel. He just has to stand still and not forget what he is. And that's why when he doesn't do that, it's a problem. So that's why Democrats are still backing him. They still feel like he's doing what he's supposed to do. Biden wasn't elected, and Biden has admitted this. Biden wasn't elected to be a change maker. He said himself, my presidency or myself as president will be a transitional presidency. He knew that going in. So that is something that Republicans have to understand. They can't get people to wake up to the horrors of Biden. What they can get people to wake up to is the instability of the country and the fact that people are not doing well. But campaigning on Biden, against Biden's family, it's never going to work. We've been trying it for 4 years. It's not worked. It's time to move on from that.
Very true, buddy. Where do you think, I want to run a few things by you. I saw a report yesterday that Joe Biden was pressured by Barack Obama to put Kamala Harris on the ticket. He wanted Whittier from Michigan. Do you think that's an accurate report? Do you think that was really what went on? I do, and I'm just curious, what does it mean going forward? Does he drop, is he at a point that he can drop Harris from the ticket now, or are they beyond a point of no return now that she has to be on the ticket come convention? Or do they pick it convention?
No, that she has to be on the ticket. If he drops Kamala Harris, black women will turn against him. And that's a problem. And he knows that young black women will turn against him. She'd have to be like found guilty of massive crimes or something. It would have to be really overt. And then he'd have to pick another black woman. There is no way Joe Biden is allowed to be president without a black woman as his vice president. That's how it is now. I believe that he wanted Gretchen Whitmer in Michigan. I think that makes sense. When he first picked Kamala, I was very surprised. Not surprised in that he picked her, but that he could stand to work with her. He's never liked her. She was a pit bull in the Senate. She was not particularly likable. She's not of that sort of I'm better than everybody else statesman fakeness that Joe Biden likes to push out like Gretchen Whitmer is. Gretchen Whitmer is a much more natural choice. She's also got that might try to shut down the government and take over your lives vibe that Biden has on a good day. So it's probably a true report, and unfortunately for Biden, Kamala Harris isn't going anywhere. You have more of a chance of Joe Biden being kicked off the top of the ticket than you do of Kamala Harris being removed.
I don't doubt that. No, I don't doubt that a bit. Whatever happened to RFK Jr.? Did he drop out? I've been sort of out of it here, but has he dropped out of the race?
No, I believe he's still in.
He's running independent, though. He's running as an independent write-in.
Yeah, and that's going to be interesting because a lot of the people that he is going to carry, even by a few percentage points, the people who are anti-vaccine, a lot of those people, it's interesting. In a lot of ways, they're socially liberal, but this issue is more of a conservative issue. So he may end up taking many more votes from the Republicans than he would from the Democrats. And this is something I think a lot of Republican operatives have backwards. They think, any votes that can be taken, that we can put up in a third-party candidate will be taken from Biden. But Biden it doesn't have any anti-vaxxers already on his team. He doesn't have those people who are campaigning for him or voting for him. Trump messed up in a lot of ways with COVID and the vaccines, and there's a lot of problems with that. A lot of anti-vaxxers who originally in 2016 voted for Trump because they wanted medical autonomy. They wanted the government to stay out of their bodies when it came to pharmaceutical companies and all of that, feel betrayed by Trump. So how is it that Biden will be cost votes by RFK Jr.? Trump will be. And that's something Republicans have to deal with, because how are you going to win those people back over without looking like you're an extremist? It's a very difficult spot for him.
Very, very difficult. Do you think that they're going to pull something before the election to try to mask us up and make us vote from home again?
No, I think that they think they're in a pretty good spot. A lot of times you see Democrats talk about they're so concerned, they're so worried. I don't buy it. I don't think it's true. I think Democrats believe that they're okay because of the youth vote, because when it comes down to it, a lot of people just hate Donald Trump. They believe that. And also, if you think about Trump in 2016, the package that was Trump, the beautiful wife, all of the perfect grandchildren, and the children and all of their perfect spouses. You had a package. It was solid. It was very, very marketable. Everyone was married. Everybody was willing to campaign. You had Ivanka out there stumping, trying to get women to vote for Trump. That was what it was. Look at the package now. Melania is rarely with him. His children are not as involved. Ivanka put out a letter to the media that she and her husband were not going to be involved in this. You see a little bit of Eric, a little bit of Don Jr. Don Jr. is divorced now. You do not have this family unity package to market. I think between that and the fact that Democrats have such a monopoly on young voters and minority voters, I don't think they're as worried as they're saying they are. They're trying to give Republicans a false confidence because they also know that millions of young women across this country are very concerned about abortion rights and everything like that. And not just because they want to abort babies, but because they're worried about the economic fallout from having families. And they don't want those decisions taken away from them. And that's something the Republican Party isn't addressing. If the Republican Party was trying to come up with a way to say to young women, here's how you can have a child in America, here's the support we'll give you, and all that, they'd be in a better place. But right now, I don't think Democrats are panicking. I think they're faking it.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay. Going forward, what was before I go about upcoming primaries, what was the most shocking thing last night you saw in New Hampshire? What was the most thing that you expected? And overall, what was your overall observation about what happened last night? I don't think anybody expected Nikki Haley to win. I didn't. I figured the number that she would get would depend on how many of these Democrats crossed over. And I find it so... The Republicans have got to stop doing this. You cannot allow Democrats, Magdalen, to vote in a Republican primary. We have got to close this up. We've got to straighten this up. This is the kind of stuff that causes us to lose elections. And we have got to fix that. But beside the crossover effect, what part of Nikki Haley's numbers, what did you see in her numbers last night, that 43%?
Well, the fact that she's winning college-educated voters, she's winning women, she's winning these groups that we have known for 6 years are a problem for Trump, and no one has tried to resolve. Actually, Kellyanne Conway has tried to resolve them, and no one listens to her, and she's been outvoted, but she has attempted to fix this. She's winning college-educated voters. She's winning them over and over again, and she's also winning people who are probably conservative but trend towards the independent line. All of the competitive groups, she's winning. And that's something Donald Trump is sort of trying to bury in the media circus. Because if they talk about that, then you're going to say, well, then why aren't we just going with her? Because Trump is winning the diehards. He's winning the Christians. He's winning, I think, a lot of Jewish voters. I think he's probably winning over a lot of Indian voters and Chinese voters. But if you look at those competitive groups, Nikki Haley's coming out on top. And that should show you the trend line of the Republican Party. You can't have a party that stands very tall and is very successful when half of it believes Nikki Haley should be president and the other half believes Donald Trump should be president. Those two people, they have very little in common. So that's what was sort of, I think, the important takeaway. She also got closer than a lot of people have thought. Now, a lot of people thought she'd be 20 points, 30 points down. But that 11-point threshold, it's not a blowout. I mean, it is because it's a huge margin. But think about the fact that this is Donald Trump. He's been president. He's beloved by the Republican Party. She still got within 11 to 12 points of him. That's pretty close. That's a surprising factor. And my other big takeaway is that he does not seem like he is ready to try to destroy her. You see a lot of, being gregarious. You see kindness from him, compassion. He knows that she's winning with those competitive groups. He's not an idiot. He's got the polling data right in front of him. He loves polls. So he knows that. And the less that he tries to counter it, the more that she wins it. So unless his plan is just, I'm going to take Nikki Haley anyway as VP, so I'm not going to worry about it. Unless that's his plan, he's losing ground every single day.
Yep. We got about 5-10 minutes, buddy. I'm going to ask you this. All right. Does Trump, I think the next primary is next week, South Carolina. Do you think the polls are accurate down there that he's going to trounce her there? And if he trounces her, does Nikki Haley get out? Or does she think she's going to keep going down in this sinking ship?
Well, he's going to win South Carolina, probably by a very large margin. But to me, the question is not necessarily does he win South Carolina. I think he will. I think it'll be by a much bigger spread than it was in New Hampshire. I am of the personal opinion that the South Carolina primaries and all of that matter much more than Iowa and New Hampshire in terms of the general election scheme. People who win Iowa and New Hampshire in the past have not even gone on to be the nominees of the party. So I think South Carolina is when it really begins. Unfortunately, Iowa and New Hampshire are where a lot of the money allocation decisions are made, so you have to focus on them. But what's going to be the takeaway in South Carolina is, again, does she win college-educated Republicans? Does she win suburban women? Does she win women, young women? Does she win older women? The competitive groups, how is she doing it? And the answer for how she's doing it is that she's likable to those people. They believe that there is a level of classiness that she brings. There's a level of no scandal. The Trump package of his family is a mess right now. He has neither of his daughters are campaigning for him. His wife is never with him. Barron is never with him. All you have is Eric and Don Jr., and Eric's wife is rarely there.
Can you blame him?
Well, yeah, he's missing all the women.
Yeah, but let me go back. Let me stop you right there, not to interrupt you. But can you blame his family for what they went through in 2020 and 2016? I wouldn't. Look, I think, and he said that last night. He said they're going to be involved, but he's not going to put them out there because and he said it. He said, look, some pretty ugly, nasty people said some pretty nasty, ugly things about his family, and it really caused him to rethink their role this time, and I think it's smart. Smart, but not to interrupt you. I understand what you're saying, but let me ask Magdalen Rose personally, you. On a scale of 1 to 10, okay? On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most favorable, 1 being unfavorable. What is your persona of Nikki Haley?
I don't like Nikki Haley. I think she's always a 5 or 6 in likability. I don't necessarily think she's compelling. I've often wondered what the big fuss is about her, but now seeing her on this campaign show, I get that she's a political animal. I get that she is so ambitious that you cannot stop her. And that I get now what consultants and fundraisers have seen is that she wants it. And you can't make a candidate want it. We've had a lot of great candidates like Marco Rubio. He never really wanted it. He was told he should have it. But he did not want to be president like this. I don't like Nikki Haley. I think she'll be a terrible, terrible voice on foreign policy. I have great fears that we'll be in a world war with her at the helm of anything. But I understand why people like her. They feel like she is a dog with a bone who's not going to have any personal scandals. There can be rumors about her and all this, but there's a level of stability. She's very much in that Bush mold, and that's a criticism that's used a lot of times. But the Bushes won a lot of elections. So there are a lot of Republicans who look around and go, even if she is in the Bush mold, the Bushes won a lot of elections. Maybe she knows how to do it, because we've been losing on and on and on since 2016.
But one final question, 5 minutes. Is losing, and again, I don't want to lose. We can't afford to lose. We just can't afford to lose, Madeline. We can't. Look, my friend, I don't know how many more years the Lord's got me on this planet, but I know he's got you, unless something tragically happens. You're going to be on here a lot longer if he tarries than me. And the generation that follows me is you, okay? Can we even stomach what would happen with 4 more years of what we've had? Magdalen, there won't be a nation for you. And if you and your husband has kids and grandkids, there ain't going to be a nation for anybody if we don't get this right. And I know I hear this cliche all the time in the media, and it's nothing against the media. I understand what Sean Hannity and that type means, and he says, well, this is the most important election in our nation's history. Well, they've said that about the past 6. And, we've survived 8 years of Obama. We will not survive 8 years of Biden. I can tell you right now, I do not see how we survive 8 years of Biden. We barely survived Obama, and Trump stopped a train wreck that was going to basically bring this country into full-fledged socialism and communism. And I'm telling you, if this don't be done right, my friend, as we say in the South, we all screwed. That's all I got to say. Final thoughts. You got 5 minutes. Wrap us up.
Well, I think that a lot of the country will collapse if we have 4 more years of Biden. We're sort of in a holding pen right now. We know that there's a supply chain issue. We know the economy is terrible, no matter how high the stock market rises, no matter how many fluff pieces they put out to Jake Tapper and Rachel Maddow. We know where the economy is. We also know that the foreign policy of the Biden administration has been an unmitigated disaster. I don't understand how our Secretary of State is still Secretary of State. He has failed in Afghanistan, in Ukraine, with the Houthis, in Yemen. It's been a disaster across the board. China does not even care what we say anymore. So how is it that he's still in office? If we continue on with Joe Biden, the number one problem we're going to have, aside from the economy and the border, is that the world is coming for us, and it has to stop. And this is what the frustrating part about Nikki Haley is. Other countries are afraid of her becoming president because they know that she's a war hawk. They know she'll bomb them and go after them.
Wow.
So this is the difficult position where a lot of Republicans are in. If you want somebody who's going to burn down the rest of the world to save America, technically, Donald Trump and Nikki Haley will both do that in different ways. Nikki Haley, though, will have 8 years to do it. Trump will have 4. I think fear over foreign policy is driving a lot of people into Nikki Haley's arms because they know that, lover or hater, she will bomb you if they bomb us. And that's something that Trump is a little bit more hesitant to do. He wants to be more measured. Nikki Haley doesn't want to be. And Nikki Haley being like that may finally be helping her, ironically, win over some of the Trump people who know the world is on fire.
Yeah, but on a scale of 1 to 10, what do you think her chances are of winning? Can I go ahead and give you my prediction? 0.
Mm-hmm.
0. What's yours?
Yeah. For winning the general?
No, for winning the primary.
Oh, no, she's not going to win the primary. I think even she knows that. But if it was a head-to-head matchup between Nikki Haley and Joe Biden, I think she can win that race. Well, but she's not going to win the primary.
I could win that race with Joe Biden tonight.
Yes.
You could win it. Donald Duck could win it. I mean, anybody could win it, you know? And right now, the country's in such a toilet. I don't think it's going to, and if the Republicans just keep smart and not stick their foot in their mouth like we always do during this time of the, these election years, because we always have somebody that's out there saying something stupid, and the media takes it and runs with it, and it becomes a narrative instead of the country, the state of the country. I think anybody on the Republican side, including President Trump, will do it. Look, I have undying loyalty to Trump. I believe he's the man. He was the man in 2016. He should have been the man in 2020. He's definitely the man in 24. I wish him the best. And I'm with you on Nikki Haley. I do not like her. I've never liked her. I think that she is a snake in the grass. I think that she has said a lot of things for political expediency. She blamed the media basically yesterday morning on the sofa on Fox for her bad poll numbers, and she says, well, you guys are the reason I'm not polling right. And I'm thinking, Nikki, no, you're not polling because people just don't like you. Why don't you just look in the mirror and say, hey, maybe people don't like what I have to say, And I know that what you're saying is that some do. And all I can say is it's going to be an interesting next few months, but I personally believe she's hurting herself if she don't get out of this race, because all she's doing is wasting a lot of unnecessary money and resources. Hey, I got one other question before I forget it. I knew I meant to ask you this a while ago. Does Ronna McDaniel survive this year? I know what you got. I know how you feel about her, but does she survive this year? The RNC chair.
She'll be Ronna McDaniel's not going to go anywhere. It's maddening. You know what I came to the conclusion of last night? I think the whole reason Ronna McDaniel is RNC chairwoman was because Trump was just trying to spite Mitt Romney. I think this whole thing was just to be mean to Mitt Romney. Remember when he was pretending to consider him for Secretary of State? I do. And he dragged him around D.C. And made him eat frog legs at that restaurant while he ordered himself a steak. I think that the whole reason Ronna McDaniel was given this job was to say to Mitt Romney, look what I can do. I can get your own family to turn from you. I can get your own family to drop your name from her name and change it to McDaniel. I can do all of that. She's going to survive. She has some perverse hold on this whole party. But if Trump were to be the nominee and lose, I think the money, the donors would force her out. But she's going to be there until the end of this election.
Okay. Fair enough. Your age group, abortion or immigration, bigger issue?
It depends on which group you ask. If you ask young liberals, they're going to say abortion. Even the men, if you ask young conservatives, they're going to say immigration. I think for young conservatives, because of the reversal of Roe v. Wade, there's less of a focus on abortion, which is sad because this is what we need to be focused on to protect life on a state level.
Amen.
But because of that, there's more of a focus on stopping illegal immigration.
That's right. I get you. Hey, appreciate you being on tonight. Thank you for stepping in on a Wednesday night. We're so grateful for you, my friend, and bless you. And I'll say, next, whenever South Carolina, we'll be back doing it again all throughout the year, and you'll be with me election night of 2024. We'll be on the McFile election desk together, bringing those results in, and probably cover the convention too. Bless you, Magdalen Rose. We thank you, my friend. Have a good night.
Thank you
so much. We bless you now.
Bye.
That was Magdalen Rose, everybody. We're grateful for her. We're grateful for you joining us on this Tuesday night. As I said, I've been very sick with the flu. We're grateful to have you. There will be no face service tonight. We will be back in the morning on that, and then we'll see you all again tomorrow night with a MacFile program at some point in the evening, and we hope to see you then. I think Brad Johnson is going to be with us tomorrow night, so we'll see you then. Thank you all. I want to say this as we go out tonight. Folks, we got serious issues that we face as a nation, and it's time for all of us to get serious about the threats that are facing the nation tonight. And we want you to know that we're here to fight the fight for America, to fight for you. We're grateful for you, and we appreciate your donations as they come in. And we will look for you tomorrow night as we have our dear buddy Brad Johnson. And you don't want to miss this. We're going to talk about the military side of things. Magdalen and I talked about the election side of things, but there's a lot of military stuff that's going on out there that needs to be addressed, and we're going to do that tomorrow night. And until then, Chris McDonald out on a Wednesday night on this 24th day of January 2024. 12424. Sounds cool, don't it? 12424. Be blessed out there, and I'll see you tomorrow night on the Mac Files. Until then, good night.